The Veldt by Ray Bradbury, Part 2. At dinner they ate alone, for Wendy and Peter were at a special carnival across town and had televised home to say they'd be late, to go ahead eating without them. So George Hadley, bemused, sat watching the dining room table produce warm dishes of food from its mechanical interior. "We forgot the ketchup," he said. "Sorry," said a small voice within the table, and ketchup appeared. As for the nursery, thought George Hadley, it wouldn't hurt for the children to be locked out of it a while. Too much of anything isn't good for anyone. And it was clearly indicated that the children had been spending a little too much time on Africa. That sun, he could feel it on his neck still like a hot paw. And the lions, and the smell of blood. Remarkable how the nursery caught the telepathic emanations of the children's minds and created life to fill their every desire. The children thought of lions, and there were lions. The children thought of zebras, and there were zebras. Sun, sun. Giraffes, giraffes. Death, death. That last one. He chewed tastelessly on the meat that the table had cut for him. Death thoughts. They were awfully young, Wendy and Peter, for death thoughts. Or no, you were never too young really. Long before you knew what death was, you were wishing it on someone else. When you were 2 years old, you were shooting people with cap pistols. But this, the long, hot African Veldt, the awful death in the jaws of a lion, and repeated again and again. "Where are you going?" asked Lydia. He didn't answer her. Preoccupied, he let the lights glow softly on ahead of him, extinguish behind him as he padded to the nursery door. He listened against it. Far away a lion roared. He unlocked the door and opened it. Just before he stepped inside, he heard a faraway scream, and then another roar from the lions, which subsided quickly. He stepped into Africa. How many times in the last year had he opened this door and found Wonderland, Alice, the caterpillar, or Aladdin and his magical lamp, or the Wizard of Oz, or Dr. Dolittle, or the cow jumping over a very real appearing moon. This room had all the delightful contraptions of a make-believe world. How often had he seen Pegasus flying in the sky ceiling, or seen fountains of red fireworks, or heard angel voices singing. But now it was yellow hot Africa, this oven with murder in the heat. Perhaps Lydia was right. Perhaps they needed a little vacation from the fantasy which was growing a bit too real for 10-year-old children. It was okay to exercise one's mind with gymnastic fantasies, but when the lively child mind settled on one pattern, it seemed that at a distance for the past month he had heard lions roaring and smelled their strong odor seeping as far away as his study door. But being busy, he had paid it no attention. George Hadley stood on the African grassland alone. The lions looked up from their feeding, watching him. The only flaw to the illusion was the open door through which he could see his wife far down the dark hall like a framed picture, eating her dinner abstractedly. "Go away," he said to the lions. They did not go. He knew the principle of the room exactly. You sent out your thoughts. Whatever you thought would appear. "Let's have Aladdin and his lamp," he snapped. The Veldt remained. The lions remained. "Come on, room, I demand Aladdin," he said. Nothing happened. The lions rumbled in their baked belts. "Aladdin?" He went back to dinner. "The stupid room's out of order," he said. "It won't respond." Or what? "Or it can't respond," said Lydia. "Because the children have thought about Africa and lions and killing so many days that the room's in a rut." Could be. or Peter set it to remain that way. Set it? He may have got into the machinery and fixed something. Peter doesn't know machinery. He is a wise one for 10, that IQ of his. Nevertheless. Hello, Mum. Hello, Dad. The Hadleys turned. Wendy and Peter were coming in the front door. Cheeks like peppermint candy, eyes like bright blue agate marbles, a smell of ozone on their jumpers from their trip in the helicopter. You are just in time for supper, said both parents. We are full of strawberry ice cream and hot dogs, said the children, holding hands. But we'll sit and watch. Yes, come, tell us about the nursery, said George Hadley. The brother and sister blinked at him and then at each other. Nursery? All about Africa and everything, said the father with false joviality. I don't understand, said Peter. Your mother and I were just travelling through Africa with rod and reel. Tom Swift and his electric lion, said George Hadley. There's no Africa in the nursery, said Peter simply. Oh, come on, Peter, we know better. I don't remember any Africa, said Peter to Wendy. Do you? No? Run, see, and come tell, Peter ordered Wendy. She obeyed. Wendy, come back here, said George Hadley, but she was gone. The house lights followed her like a flock of fireflies. Too late, he realized that he had forgotten to lock the nursery door after his last inspection. Wendy, look and come tell, said Peter. She doesn't have to tell me. I have seen it. I'm sure you are mistaken, Father. I am not, Peter. Come along now. But Wendy was back. It's not Africa, she said breathlessly. We'll see about this, said George Hadley, and they all walked down the hall together and opened the nursery door. There was a green, lovely forest, a lovely river, a purple mountain, high voices singing, and Rima, lovely and mysterious, lurking in the trees with colourful flights of butterflies, like animated bouquets, lingering in her long hair. The African Veldt was gone, the lions were gone, only Rima was here now, singing a song so beautiful that it brought tears to your eyes. George Hadley looked in at the changed scene. Go to bed, he said to the children. They opened their mouths. You heard me, he said. They went off to the air closet, where a wind sucked them like brown leaves up the flue, to their slumber rooms. George Hadley walked through the glade and picked up something that lay in the corner near where the lions had been. He walked slowly back to his wife. What is that? She asked. An old wallet of mine, he said. He showed it to her. The smell of hot grass was on it, as well as the smell of a lion. There were drops of saliva on it. It had been chewed, and there were blood smears on both sides. He closed the nursery door and locked it tight. In the middle of the night he was still awake, and he knew his wife was awake. Do you think Wendy changed it? She said at last in the dark room. Of course. Made it from a Veldt into a forest and put Rima there instead of lions. Yes. Why? I don't know, but it's staying locked until I find out. How did your valet get there? I don't know anything, he said, except that I'm beginning to be sorry we bought that room for the children. If the children are neurotic at all, a room like that, it's supposed to help them work off their neurosis in a healthful way. I'm starting to wonder, he stared at the ceiling. We have given the children everything they ever wanted. Is this our reward? Secrecy? Disobedience? Who was it that said children are carpets, they should be stepped on occasionally? We have never lifted a hand. They are insufferable, let's admit it. They come and go when they like, they treat us as if we were offspring. They are spoiled and we are spoiled. They have been acting funny ever since you forbade them to take the rocket to New York a few months ago. They are not old enough to do that alone, I explained. Nevertheless, I've noticed they've been decidedly cool toward us since. I think I'll have David McLean come tomorrow morning to have a look at Africa. But it's not Africa now. It's Green Mountains country and Rima. I've a feeling it'll be Africa again before then. A moment later they heard the screams. 2 screams, 2 people screaming from downstairs, and then a roar of lions. "Wendy and Peter aren't in their rooms," said his wife. He lay in his bed with his beating heart. "No," he said, "they've broken into the nursery." "Those screams, they sound familiar." "Do they?" "Yes, awfully." And although their beds tried very hard, the 2 adults couldn't be rocked to sleep for another hour. A smell of cats was in the night air.